clock. Streaming. Cool. Alright, got the socials up. Let's see. Let's look. What do we got going on? Oh. It says excellent. Put live right here. Okay, cool. Now let's see. What can we start off with today? We could do some studies today. A little warm up before we get into the full swing of things. Let's see. Faces. Just painting some faces for work today. We could find one. We can find a variety. Oh, this would be a fun guy. This could be cool. Paste one. Copy. Paste. Paste. Copy. Paste. Alright. Probably gonna be in color. So what we'll do, let's see. So I have them in 4s right here. And then what we'll do is maybe we'll darken the background just a tad. Yeah. Okay, cool. Um, Sweet. So we're just gonna sketch some faces. Kind of just go from there. And then actually, because I have this on a separate screen. Let me zoom in for you guys so you can see. And then I'll just like move it every time. So you guys can get a good scope of where I'm drawing. So, this guy has a more front-facing look. If we look at his jawline, it's kind of like right here, and then it bulbous out. So funny enough, I guess like a point of talk while I'm doing this study, and one thing that I could drop some knowledge on, a lot of the times, oh, let me see, uh-oh, buffering, that's not good. Let's see. Let me close some applications real quick. Weird. Hold up. It is buffering a little bit. Let me see. Oh. Okay. Anyways. Analytics. Sorry about that. Had to do a midstream kind of buffer. What was I gonna say? What was the point? Oh, because I was drawing the ear. So funny enough, I feel like once you've drawn enough of something, most of the time it kind of like bundles together and like looks the same, ears being one of them. I'm pretty sure he has a very distinct ear, very unique one, but because we can't see it right now, I'm just going to assume that it's relatively the same. It goes for a lot of things that you study. If you study it enough and study a variety of different ones, you can pull from your library if you can't see it just yet. And you could see where, actually this would be a little higher, probably a little bit up here. Yeah. You can pull from like your library bank of like, oh, where, you know, you as a, like your ears or mouth or nose kind of align, right? So his nose and his mouth relatively are visible to me, so I can just directly kind of observe and mimic what I see. But let's say his like nose was like kind of covered relatively, like that, and there was like some ambiguity, then I'd probably like in my head just kind of pull from like my bank of drawing noses and be like, okay, his nose is kind of like this. So from here, I notice that his nose kind of divvy out. His eyebrows are really, if we look at them, they don't arch. Or they do, kind of. They're like ever so slight. They're not anything crazy. They're just like two boxes on his head. And then they, if you notice, kind of curve at the bottom. So I want to, yeah, see that. He also has very slope-y eyes. So like, for example, on the top, it's going to be very little if we think about where the like midline is. And if his, let's say his eyes like this, we have like that. Hey Mary, it's good to see you. And then from here, kind of just like dips downwards. And then same goes for his like other eye, right? If we observe it, you do it above the line, relatively. And then from here, kind of just like cuff it, right? It's like that. We have his eyes. From there, we could draw the eye folds. She has very interesting eye folds that I don't think I've seen from a person. And then his eyes are going to be like right here in the center. He has like really long eyelashes. Which I'm kind of losing. Actually, let me increase this because this is hurting my hand pressing as hard as I am. And we're gonna bring this in. His eyebrows do stick out a lot, but I think his eyes specifically don't stick out that much. So it's gonna be like maybe still tucked like that. Maybe a little bit bigger. It's like big, but like not as stretched out, like how I drew it. And this one, same thing. It's like bigger, but not as stretched out. I don't think it's making that big of a difference. Okay, so here we're gonna slightly kind of go there. His nose, it's interesting that his kind of nose does this and then kind of caves outwards. I'm gonna put like the underbags kind of goes there, and then we have his like cranium. So this is where, like, if we look at where the eyes gonna go lower, yeah. So eyes would go a little bit lower than what I have it. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, whereas like skull, if you look at skulls, they have like the where the cheekbone is kind of thing. So we'll have that right here. Right here we'll have where like the no bridges. Sometimes I think with like penmanship and what do you call it? Just like when you're sketching a character out, sometimes you can't just like paint things, like unless you just like get in values or like actual paint. A lot of the times you just like kind of imaginary draw like these forms that you can kind of see that I have. If we look at the guy on the left, so you see how like this kind of branches out like that. If you draw it ever so slightly, like, or lightly, you can kind of get away with like exactly what you see, and that goes for like a lot of blended forms on some of these guys right here. Like right here, if I go too crazy, then it's gonna look like he has really baggy eyes. But if we just add ever so slightly like implied like shadows or implied like forms or lines that normally we would render ourselves if we had like paint, or if we were using paint at this very moment. Yeah. So then we're gonna get his lips. He has very like curvy lips. Kind of this like branches out like this. But it's not as big, so I need to respect how big like the lips might actually be. Maybe something like that. What we can do, let's see. So he is smiling just a little bit, a little smile. Let's get his eyes shadowed in, his eyebrows shadowed in, just so we have like an understanding of where the value range is for his face. And then also, again, to respect his face, his chin is very long. So what I'm going to do is key of observation. So his chin is very long. Have that. And then his like, if we look at his lips, they kind of cuff underneath. Like the edges right here are very like thin. So he has so his lips kind of cover like that, right? There we go, right? Then we have his like mouth. Yo, yo, what's up, Double M? So we're kind of getting more droopier look. So I think my placements are pretty good. The only thing is, have that. So the more details I add within the eyes, the more closer we'll get to like his specific unique features and look. So one thing we can observe that, you know, maybe I'm, you know, I like to get basic foundations of like the human skull. So let's get his neck in. Yeah. M, if you're just coming in right now, currently I'm just going over like, you know, face anatomy, and like how to execute it, some tips on, you know, draftsmanship, on how to approach it without like, you know, color and all that fun stuff. If there's any questions you have, feel free to let me know. More than happy to. So his eyes are still like a little too wide for my taste. Oh, he's also tilted. But not all of his face is tilted, just his lower half. Something. Actually, I mean, this guy is kind of. Yeah, I know, I'm not wrong. I'm like. I like relatively have the idea. It looked kind of off, but seeing how he himself is also like relatively tilted sideways in some manner, it's not a big concern. Yeah. This guy, I'll say, yeah. I'm gonna keep the droopiness, like add some shadows. Cause he has very droopy eyes. If I overexpose them, it kind of looks like he's like wide-eyed, like very passionate guy, but he has very droopy eyes. And it looks like I have him looking like in an upwards direction, but maybe I should change the location of his eyes to give us that he's looking at the camera. So that should be our first goal. Okay, first, yeah, we got that. This is gonna be funny to say, but I know I am streaming, and I am like, to an extent, talking to the viewers, you guys. But if you're ever drawing, I don't know. For me personally, talking out loud, my like thought process, like I'm talking to you guys, always seems to get me around the hump of just like what I'm doing, right? There we go. This guy has like JoJo level eyelashes. But yeah, just like talking about your stuff, like to yourself, kind of breaking down what you're doing. Are you doing it right? And interestingly enough, you saw me go, oh yeah, like that looks really good. Like it's okay. You don't have to like be like, this looks wrong, like 100% of the time, because, you know, your brain leaves like a checkpoint marker of like what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And if you like, you know, if you say like you're doing things wrong like 90% of the time, and like your brain is just gonna like burn itself out in some sense of like, you know, you thinking that you're not, you know, good enough or whatever. So like when you are doing things right, call it out in yourself. And then when you're doing things not as efficient or good as you may like want it, you know, call yourself out and then just improve from there, right? Little fun tidbit advice. Yeah. And then his chin, it's kind of more rounded. Actually, no, we don't need to add that. I was gonna add like detail lines to insinuate that he's angled in a very specific, like his chin has like edge. We're gonna do this. Gonna kind of finish this guy. We're gonna do his hair, and then we're gonna finish this guy and move on to the next person. Okay, so hair. Quick tutorial on how to approach hair. Hair has like your hairline, which would be this, and a lot of the times, like, you can kind of get away with, especially with studying, right? This could also go for, you know, doing your own stuff, but if you don't have the visual library that studying provides to give you, you could kind of get lost when doing hair. But drawing the silhouette out first of the hair is probably more important than the strands that like follow suit, right? So in this guy's particular case, he looks like Wolverine. So right now I'm just drawing specifically what I see, right? Just this outer rim for those. It's like in my head, I'm not like directly copying it, but I am getting a gist of an idea of like what is specifically there, right? So also, one thing I wanted to start to do, and if you found this stream like really useful, is everything. I have my free community where I post like all of the. I have my free community where I post all of the like challenges, and then like it's like more of a community building. It's free of access, you know, for those who just want to like make friends and just kind of like share art within, you know, one another. But if you're looking to actually like improve and increase your skills like tenfold, In my paid community, what I'm going to start doing is uploading the PSDs that I do for every stream, so you can check them out. Currently, right now, I'm just like kind of drawing. And you could see me draw like all of this in real time. However, there might be, you know, things that I might do that you're like, oh, how did he do that? Like one specific thing. Like you look at the stream and you know, you just can't understand how I got to that point. I will have the PSD files and locations in the paid community, which is free 7-day access. After that, it's $30 a month, but you can cancel at any time. There's no obligation to stay. If you're curious about it, it's down below in the description at artisthubmasterclass.com. You'll see like the 3 kind of like listings on the website. And yeah, there's like free, there's masterclass, which is the paid one, and then exclusive, which is like where I host my mentorship. And currently have one of my mentees there, and he's doing a great ass job. Also in our masterclass, we one of our students finished his portfolio project and did an amazing job, and currently going to be pretty soon giving him industry advice on how to get a job, set up a resume, and all that fun stuff. So yeah, if that interests you, head over to that website and, you know, get started today. What's up, Jay? How's it going? Glad to have you here, man. We're just doing faces right now. I was doing some during work, and then I was like, huh, like, since I have like the first hour of like warming up and kind of getting into the motions, you know, it's best to kind of practice my fundamentals here. And so now here we are. It's probably like, you know, the time during the day I look forward to, because I'm like, huh, when do I ever get opportunities to like practice my fundamentals? And it's here. And I can teach, you know, you and then like other fellow students how I approach it. All right, dude number 1. I hope we got something. It looks fairly close. Fairly, yeah. Let's get in conclusions. Kind of does have very strong features though. Maybe to an extent stretch out this side. This side feels very thin and barren. This? Oh, yeah. Yeah. That looks cool. Awesome. Then here, same treatment. Yeah, we want to see this part. And then I think he has like a bigger forehead. Yeah, once we finish this, then I will move on to the next person. More. Yeah, there we go. See it from an outside point of view. There we go. Kid you not though, this guy has some like JoJo level eyelashes. I feel like this is a JoJo character just based off his like his eyelashes alone, which I find very funny. Or at least his bottom lashes. He has like this dead eye look. You draw like little shadows here and there. His like eyeline lid. There we go. And here has a little smirk kind of going on. And he has the kind of jawline pressure right here. Alright. There we go. Sick. Alright, this guy. So an interesting thing when I was getting mentored a while back is And this guy, I think, has the most case of it. I don't know if I'm going to be doing, like... actually, you know what? Let's just start with how I usually do things, which is like a circle. One thing I was taught is most people have, like, distinct features about them, and you just need to kind of find that thing that makes their face so... like, what their face is. Right? And remember I was drawing like Jason Statham or whatever, and he had like a humongous like bald forehead, and I was like, oh, like that's how you can kind of identify Jason Statham. So this guy has a lot of distinct features, but because of that, can also find opportunities to not correctly get them, right? So one thing I noticed about this guy specifically is that his face does this a lot, as opposed to like this guy. Like this guy's face did this, and then this guy's face does this, and it could be like a sense of like rounding, like he's a very rounded guy, and we need to keep that in mind. But it just goes for like a lot of his, like how he approaches. Like even look at his nostril, right? So if we look at like him, actually let's get blue because he's like a very warm person. So if we look at his nostril, it's like doing that, right? It's like curving. His eyebrow ridge, it's curving. His like eyelids right here, curving. Cheekbone, curving. Mouth, like muscles, like just straight curves. And then his chin. And then his like neck area, which curves like that. His mouth, under, over. Just very like a lot of curves, even this, right? So I got to keep that in mind when doing this, like when approaching this guy. Like right here. It's like his face does that. His nose does that. And then we curve it. That. Then we have like this strong kind of strong ridge area. And so this is where it gets kind of, you know, so. So this guy's face, look at his eyes. Could be very delicate with his eyes because this could go south if I'm not. So we have under. Actually, this doesn't go out that crazy. Hold up, let me do that. And this guy's. Oh, let me remove the blue so I can see what I actually have to look at. So it cuffs right here, and then it branches out over here. Then we can cuff right here, and then from here we just do this. Just goes all the way down. Right. Go here, and then his chin comes out right here. And then if you look at how his smile is, it's kind of like that, like we mimicked earlier. And he has a mustache, but not too of importance right now. Actually, we gotta make sure that nostril's there. That's like one of the biggest points about him. So let's do this curve. We have his nose right here. I have that. And then here is gonna cuff This is where we're going to see this. And then this is going to come right here. And then this guy's going to have a mustache, which probably should add. Lips are gonna pearl out like that. This guy has a very interesting mouth. And then this is gonna peer out over here. Not gonna see really much other than like maybe dark creases. And then here we're gonna have like where you see this, we look at it from the other side. And then it kind of just branches out down here. One way, so interestingly enough, everything follows a 3D curve. Like, you know, sometimes you won't see oh, whoops, my bad. My bad, I'm so sorry. I completely forgot to change the angle. I was just drawing this dude. So let me zoom in right here, and I'll remember next time, right? So for the other guy, he was very like, we could see him at a flat kind of view, right? Like there was no ambiguity to like each side, except for the back, right? Which would have its own form and flow, right? However, this guy, if we look at him like he's a like box, he's more like this, right? And so everything on his face is going to be, relatively speaking, a box that is like this, right? And so when you're thinking about like, oh, how do we understand how this goes over? It's like two ways, right? It's like one, you actually like understand that like a person's mouth is kind of like this like muzzle, right? And this would actually stretch out like maybe even more over here. Is like this muzzle that we have, right? Or two, if you think about it in 3D and how the like nose, if you were to like cut it in half, it would just kind of do this, right? Like this would be the nose in like 3D. You'd see like the other side if you could see the other side and like switch it. So once you think that, like then you could add this line right here with confidence and like comfort, right? Because you know, right? But yeah, it's a little tidbit trick to understand certain forms, right? Because forms are usually always the toughest thing to understand. Is most things are in 3D, so if you just understand how the like 3D works within the subject you were studying, things become a lot less scary. So this guy, he actually has not like a disappointed look, but he has like a tired look. So I'm also looking at the top screen right now, so. And he's got like a lot of weight. So one thing about this guy's arch is it's very angular. Although it is cuffing like that, it's very angular. And he has very like, he has eyebrows, but they're very like thin and blonde. So it's kind of hard to see. And then here has the same level of eyebrows, but they're kind of thinning out over here. Actually, thin out over here. And we have this cuff. Yeah, let me turn it up a bit. There we go. Hopefully this works. There we go. So, here. Also, let me know how that is. Currently trying out a little new setting. So there's like less static noise. So we have that. This guy, his eye kind of curves and cuffs. Wait. Okay. So here, kind of, it's doing that. We have this. And then from here, yeah. Also, there might be times where I'm just like kind of mumbling, so apologize of that. It's more of a I'm thinking phase. How far is that? Oh yeah, that wraps like that. And then we'll just do this. There we go. Okay. Now, this guy has a very interesting kind of neck because it does this kind of cuffs. It's the only like kind of straight looking line on his neck or his like whole face. So that's kind of like how when I was talking about distinctions earlier, it's like if you did this, right? If you generalized his look and you relatively just did this and then maybe like a straight line right here, like that could work, right? But if you look at like characterizing his like whole head, this kind of looks like a straight line that divots like that and does this, right? Maybe a little bit more obscure, so it's like that, right? So if that's the case, let's get that like obscurity right there. And then the rest is like his cranium. Right. So we get like a little bit more of a, you know, interesting look from the guy. And then also, to this point, he has this kind of neck chin area. Don't know the actual term for it, but yeah. So let me actually it's kind of cuffs like that. And we're gonna do this. Nope. Because it does come down a lot more. So I think we'll start from here and go from there. Yes. And then we come out right here. And then this comes out right here. Like that. And then from what it looks like, this pops up over here. And then this comes down over here. And then this is more of a curve. And then this kind of pans down over here. And then we have his ear, which is a little bit more unique, which is kind of like this. Then pans over here. Kind of has like a sharp earlobe. And then it comes down over here. Does this. Yeah, there we go. It's kind of might cuff over here. And then might do this. Hold up. Judging from the light, so I'm just gonna give him like sharp kind of corners. Only thing that I feel like I could improve on is this guy's face feels a lot more round, while the way I drew him feels like I elongated his face just a tad, especially this bottom part. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna do this. It's a little pan. So we can get closer to exactly what we want. Also, he has like chin hair, which is, it's very subtle. An Apache beard. Then he also has a pretty solid hairline. He also has a lot of wrinkles, so, or in terms of like forehead wrinkles. What's that? Yeah. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And then what's the last thing? I guess this could branch off a little bit more over here, so it like cuffs at the end. And then this. What can we do here? You do this. He has like a little bit of eyebrows. I don't know if I want to go crazy. Or not eyebrows, eyelashes. It's like not as dominant. And then this area. One thing about this guy is he's frowning really hard. And so let's just make sure that, we actually like encapsulate that frown. And that his bottom lip shows. There we go. It's more like this guy. I feel like before we had like a guy who kind of looks like him, like a doppelganger, but not the guy. The guy has a very frowny face. And then yeah. So for context, I did change up his face a little bit, like right here. And that's because if we notice right here, it's like a straight line and then it kind of divots. Same thing goes for right here. It's like a straight line and then it divots. Let's create that caricature of this guy. And his like mustache kind of branches out like right here. So we can see more of his like mouth area. And then I think that's it. Maybe he has some like chin hair like right here. And then I know that this area is kind of covered up. So yeah, there we go. Here, I'm going to get rid of this so we can see that pocket in between, because I think that's going to make a big difference. And here, this kind of goes like that. So, there we go. That's That's what we like to see. So those little things are always like, the more you do those little things, the more things start to add up. And what I mean by little things is, instead of doing this, right, where you just kind of draw a ball and an eye, and then, yeah, there's like a loop right here, and I could just call it there, right? But the difference between like it looking accurate and like to the photograph and it not is always these little things of, oh, there's it's a millimeter of a distance, but there's a distance, right? Or this, when the eye comes over, it doesn't just do this lemonade kind of eye drop looking thing. It comes over, it drops drastically, and then you have like the little eye pocket that's right there between the eye, and then you have the like outer edge of the eye, right? And there's like a huge kind of difference between paying attention to that and not, right? And if you do that for like everything else, for example, like when I did this, I originally started off like, oh yeah, this is just a circle. But then I looked at it more closely and I was like, yeah, there is like just a circle, but like this comes out like a curve. This kind of dips down like a straight line, and then it cuffs. Kind of like a straight line. I still kind of like have that curve, and then it cuffs. And then we have this big bulbousy chin, right? Like those key things, if you pay attention to it, then that's gonna like kind of change your thing, right? So I'm gonna work a little bit more on this, and we're gonna kind of finish from here. So we're gonna get go from there, and then yeah, good observation, right? Glad you pointed that out. And then I think one last thing, we're actually gonna, so we have this, and I'm just gonna do that. It's gonna kind of come over here. We're just gonna have a lot of space, and then he has this like frown. He actually has this like frown that goes over here. And then this, if you look at it over here, it's kind of a little bit more softer than how like wide I had that. And then over here, it's like neck. And then on his scalp, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the opacity, keep it very loose and kind of gestural. Maybe? Might be a little too much. Yeah, it's a little too much. We'll leave it like ambiguous like this guy. And we'll look at his eyebrows one last time. we're just gonna finish off here, because I think I'll do one more. So I think at some point I want to get back to characters. So we'll just do this girl. Okay. And this character might be character person might be a little tricky, but we can handle it. So we'll put her ear here as a placement for now. And we'll find the center line. Her eyebrows are going to be roughly right here. And then her other eyebrow is going to be right here. And then her eyes. Oh, right. Oopsies. There. Cool. The eye right there. And then it looks like her eye kind of encapsulates most of the framing of the eye socket. But it is she is looking at us. So I gotta be a little careful on how I approach this, because it might just be like this. Hopefully. And here. Has one of those like button nose kind of things. And then I think I made her jaw a little too long. This is a very kind of childlike. There we go. Let's see. Now, one thing about this, it's a couple things. One thing about this, as I am about to do a whole slew of things at the moment, So a couple things we have to tackle is her cheek. Making sure that's right. Get the eyes right. There you go. And from here, get the lips. The lips more along the lines of that. Here. Actually, let's get this. Okay. So here, we can get the kind of core idea of granted, it doesn't pop out this far, so I need to be careful with that. It's kind of like and then what I'm going to do is add eyelashes. So that's the big point of her kind of approach. And her eyes need to be a little darker. So I think the biggest statement in what's going to make this character the character is her eyes. Because her eyes have actually, like, more often than not, like, the biggest, like, it's the biggest point of interest. So if I mess up her eyes, it's gonna kind of like take away from the piece. That and her like cheeks and like lips, I think are gonna take away from the piece. So here, you can already see that I'm not, the eye was too small, right? So acknowledging that the biggest point of this, kind of person is their eyes, or one of their biggest points is their eyes. Gonna make sure that that eye proportion is correct. Another thing is they have a very like almost carefree, but kind of carefree look. So I just need to make sure that doing this character. Okay, we have an idea. And her eyebrows aren't that crazy, or at least that big, considering how big that I have them. Right. There you go. Kind of getting some of these features down a little bit more, a little better. Okay. Yeah, stream going a little silent because really just intently focusing on what I'm doing right now. Probably should have kept explaining every single part of the way through. I will keep that in mind for next time. But yeah, currently right now, just getting those details in that are really, really subtle. Actually, I think they might just be slightly a tad. There we go. And here, I think she has a very soft face, or like her jawline's just either probably not going to be as present. Even like her chin made it very like harsh edges. They're going to be very soft. And her ear has a very distinct kind of look, like bends at some point. So it's gonna be like that. There we go. Got the ear. And I think this drops a little bit. Yeah, I know this drops a little bit because we don't see much of this. And this gap isn't that big. It's there, but it's not that big. There we go. Yeah, it's creating these more subtle tones. Okay, so one thing we can improve on is here. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna remove the tooth area. If we understand that. This kind of pouts out over here, which is interesting. We have that. There we go. And this kind of cuffs underneath. And then we're gonna have the chin kind of borrow out over here. And then kind of go from there to here. And then yeah, we'll slowly get there. And then I don't think this cuffs out right here. I think it cuffs out right here. And so let's keep in mind. Now I'm just for context, just kind of chatting with myself on certain things that I know I can improve on. Can get like this look. So, but the only difference is maybe it's because I have this and I'm not necessarily taking into account that it branches out more like this versus it cuffs in. And then this, gotta keep the stature of the lips pouting out. Kind of comes out over here. There you go. And the chin, yeah. It's like round, but it's like not that round. There we go. And then we have like her head. Let me do one more thing to kind of cuff it out. And then let's add this. This. Yeah, right now I'm just kind of getting that in. There we go. Not gonna think too hard about that neck piece right now. All right. Lastly, we're gonna get into her hair. We're gonna make the hair very quick. So we only have 30 or 40 minutes left of the stream. So right now we're gonna kind of cuff this. Actually, you know what? Her hair kind of does this. And then it spirals. And then here, kind of twists and turns. So what we're gonna do here is her hair. So we have these like crazy buns. And then they like drop down into tails. Right? Here, so then what we're gonna do is we're gonna connect this, get a strong connection point to the buns, and then this is gonna peer over here, and then we're just gonna have that. Then kind of buns peering out like that and just creating this tail. Yeah. Still think we could do a little bit more. And this doesn't, this just is just a nice curve. Then it bounces. And then here, Her face feels long. I feel like that's what we're losing. Yeah, there we go. That's what I felt like was losing earlier, is her face felt really long. Okay. We will just finish off from there, and then we'll end the stream with a character. Hopefully this anatomy kind of lesson of faces was helpful. If you'd like to get the PSD of this and just kind of like analyze it, especially with the character that we're going to do afterwards, let me know. Or not let me know. You can find it in the you can find it at Artist Hub Masterclass. Link in the description. Okay, cool. So I'm going to be speedrunning a character really quickly. So one little fun thing I can teach you in the next like 30 minutes is how to create like awesome silhouettes. Now there's a variety of different ways. However, one thing that I can kind of pinpoint as a common denominator is pushing primitive shapes. So I'll get into that a little bit after. Maybe like tomorrow's stream when we're doing like foundations again, I can answer that. Just remind me tomorrow. But this time around, we are just gonna do a little lesson in design right now before we finish off. But yeah, okay. So quick little tips on design. We're gonna be pushing primitive shapes. So what are primitive shapes? So we're gonna go circle, square, and then triangle, right? Basically, you can combine those and just kind of have fun with them, right? Now, when you're creating silhouettes, a lot of the times one of these particular shapes will pop up with your design. For example, if we're thinking about an archetype, right? A lot of the times knights are associated with squares and circles, or squares and triangles. So if I draw a standard guy, also for context, I'm using the program, what do you call it? Filthy, which allows me to create silhouettes with my lasso tool a lot quicker. So if, you know, if we create like a knight, this is just a standard looking guy, right? Let's pretend like we're adding armor to him with like just silhouettes, right? So one thing you might think about or do is if he leans one way or the other, right? So if we think about it, if he is 70% like squares and 30% triangles, then a lot of the times, let me split this design into of like one or the other. A lot of the times you'll drastically get a different outcome, right? So some people might really square off and make them like bulbousy, right? Let me get rid of that. So, I mean, we're gonna make this guy like a tinfoil can, right? And so we have, you know, a lot of these square-like shapes. And what these square-like shapes communicate to us a lot of the times is like brick or like defender of some kind, protector. And, you know, you could really just go there, like push in terms of size. When somebody says push, a lot of the times they're noticing that you're playing it really safe, unless that's like the intent, right? Like if you have like some like a character that's not like a hero archetype or a standard boss character or something that really wants to stick out and like, you know, kind of go from there, then a lot of times you won't hear the word push, right? But in terms of like realism, like, yeah, in terms of realism, you wouldn't hear push. But in terms of like, you know, stylized characters and game design characters, a lot of times you'll hear the word push. And that has to do with like sizing, right? When somebody says like, oh, push your shapes, it means either sizing or like how you're approaching the shape itself. Like, are you really distinguishing the shape from something other than like a primitive shape, right? Sometimes like, well, the point is like, oh, primitive shapes, right? That's what you were just talking about. But as you could see, we have like the triangle per se, but we're not doing a literal triangle, right? We're doing like a shape that's like kind of square, but in a triangular fashion. When we look at silhouettes, right? And we're like really pushing it. So yeah, you know, just, yeah, think about that, right? And then we can start to kind of shrink this guy a little bit. We'll get into the triangle guy real quick when we talk about like knight or guardian or somebody of stature, right? So I might have something that's like this, and then maybe he's got like a, you know, if we get like a long rod, he's got this big old hammer. All right, big old hammer. Right. And nothing screams protector like a guy with a big old hammer, right? So this is how you can push your designs, right? Is you're just taking and identifying what your character's dominant shape is, right? Another thing to push your design, especially the silhouette, if we're talking about silhouettes right now, is your negative space, right? So negative space is essentially the space between other objects. So when an art director or a client says, oh, you know, I kind of want more negative space. Negative space is, let's say, like red is the interior space. So red is everything that's jutting outwards, right? Red is everything that juts outwards, right? Blue is everything that is not within the red, or not jutting outwards within the red, right? So it's this space. So it's all of this, right? That's negative space. So when a client says create more interesting negative space or add more negative space, it just means that you're working with the background more to create a more interesting character, right? So you see how now I'm removing from the design, right? I'm taking things away from the design to really give them like a stature, a stance, right? So even that alone is creating some unique dynamic flow. We could also do this. He could be like an iron giant of sort, because it doesn't look like he has normal like people proportions, if anything. It's like character. So yeah, that is for our, just to separate out forms. So this is for our, like, Iron Golem Man Knight guy, right? And so yeah, point, pushing shapes in character. One, dominant, primitive, and then subdominant, subprimitive. So you find the 70-30 that you want to push, and then you kind of go from there, right? A lot of the times, like when you're designing, you're not actively thinking about this. Like it's not like, oh, I'm going to make this character a full triangle. It's just like intuition that comes in mind when you're thinking about an archetype, right? And then negative space. Negative space. Oh, yeah. Negative space, right? Negative space. So now imagine if we had the opposite effect. We had 30, 70. It's the same thing, except this time, triangles are the dominant shape, right? So if we had triangles be the dominant shape, then we would actively draw triangles. And this is a common thing you see in some like archetypes of like something that's agile, very dangerous, attacks. So let's say like we had like a different stance for this guy, character person, and then maybe, and here we could have like the triangles, right? Or the squares, right? Long robe cape thing. Maybe they have like, let's see. It's kind of. Just try to figure this. Can I have like a very triangular staff? Right here. So now we're just kind of finicking around with shapes. Right, even here, like a triangle of some sort. You can add some negative space, right? We were talking about that earlier. Could be that. Add some of that square motif. Something similar to that. Probably more triangles like right here. Maybe they got like a flowing. Got knee pads or like shoes, right? Let's add like shoes. And then you could add like cuts right here. Just kind of changing things up, right? Seeing what works, what doesn't. These are super rough, but a lot of the times with silhouettes, you could get you can get away with a lot, because it's a lot of times silhouettes are left to the imagination. And then so we have like a fully triangulated, character, floating within space. Right. So that's how you push characters. Now, occasionally I like to have fun and add color. So in my head, I imagine this character to be purple. You could add color. This is mainly for silhouettes. A lot of times you could have the same philosophy for line work and everything else. But I want you as the viewer to think about, when you're designing a character, what is their, dominant shape and their subdominant shape when you're thinking about your archetype, right? So if you're drawing, like, let's say a druid, sometimes depending on the druid, you might draw them very either triangle and square or circle and square, and just kind of seeing where that like kind of lines and feels to you. Kind of drawing like this guy has a rib cage of magic. And pretend like they're floating. Give them a little fun cloud around them. Right. Maybe their head is actually bigger than I'm giving them credit, so let's shrink it a little. Shrink it ever so tad, and then add the horns back. There we go. Kind of have this. Let's give it some flow. Maybe because both arms are down. I think I mentioned this in the yesterday's stream, but you don't want to have the same, like the arms doing the same thing. So maybe this guy's more of an elemental. And add like, you know, arms. Yeah. A little fun elemental color palette. Maybe there's like some fire brimming off of them. Right? It's like little things here and there. But yeah. This is essentially like ideas. This is a similar approach for one of my projects, if we're going to talk about it, of how I kind of approached, actually. How I approached, let's see, Art Station. Then we're gonna go to View Profile. Yes. How I approach my lava bots. So a lot of times I was just kind of like messing around, but one thing that I did have in mind consistently is that lava and lighters were the reference. So most of the times they had like square like motifs. Occasionally like the circle, if it was like the concept, like I warranted it. Like this was more of a circle and square. This is more of a circle and square. This one's more of a triangle and square. This one's more of a circle and square. This one's more of a square and circle and square. This one's more of a circle and a triangle, right? And in here, also playing with silhouettes, some ideas, some approaches, right? So, yeah. So that's usually how I go about things in terms of like when I think about stuff. Usually I'll work in like line work. But in this particular case, I wanted to get the point across a lot more clearly. So right now I'm just kind of just noodling. We are at the 10-minute mark where I will be ending the stream. If you guys have any last-minute questions you'd like for me to answer. Okay. Also, by the end of it, kind of just want to acknowledge if there's like some buffering issues. I'm not sure what's going on, but I will look to get that fixed next stream. YouTube was kind of like really spamming that on me while I was like streaming. So yeah, I'll make sure to get that fixed up and noted. Shrink this guy. His legs are like really short, so let me extend them out. Yeah, make them all long. This guy floats. He definitely skips leg day. Maybe. So one thing about pushing shapes, lastly, is if you make things bigger, kind of give like a statement, right? You want your character to be like, hell yeah. This is my big galactic triangle weapon that shoots out laser beams and destroys planets or whatever they do, right? Make this thing huge. Could be corroded in his powerful Giga Chad energy. Add like some of those layers that I had earlier, fire. Right? Little shine divots, little highlights. Yeah. Something cool, something fun. This character's a lot more triangle than square, but still still have some of those square elements in there. But yeah, we are wrapping up on 5 minutes. If there are no further questions, then I will end here, and you guys have a fantastic day. And of course, everything will be posted in Masterclass if you haven't already joined. And